Welcome, everyone, to the Thursday edition of Fair Territory. I'm Ken Rosenthal here with Hannah Kaiser stepping in for Alana Rizzo this week. And Hannah, the last couple of days have been kind of busy. No Alex Bregman, no Pete Alonso, but quite a bit of activity.
Yeah, a lot of little moves, which of course ends up being the difference so often over the course of a 162 game season. We're going to get to that. Before we do, I want to invite people, implore people, put your Grillin Ken questions in the chat. We'll get to those a little bit later. But yeah, like you alluded to, Ken, we've gotten through the big teams making big moves portion of the offseason and haven't quite gotten to the everyone who's still left scrambles to find a chair before the music stops part of the offseason. So now we're into some smaller market teams making savvy little moves. We're going to start with the Reds. What have you got for us?
Yeah, the Reds have been really interesting all off season, actually, Hannah. And the last couple of days, Austin Hayes on a 1 year deal. That one is pending a physical. Wade Miley on a minor league deal, but they expect him back from Tommy John surgery in mid-May. And then yesterday, a trade for the left-handed reliever Taylor Rogers. And when you look at the entirety of their offseason, they have made, as you described them, a bunch of savvy, kind of medium moves. And Brady Singer was the first of them. Brady Singer, the right-handed pitcher from the Kansas City Royals. That was in exchange for Jonathan India. They've also added Jose Trevino, Gavin Lux. They've re-signed Brent Suter. They brought back Nick Martinez on a qualifying offer. And the biggest move, of course, is the hiring, or was the hiring, of Terry Francona as manager. So you see the different names there, and it's a different kind of team. It's a little bit more veteran. They've brought in high character people that they think can lead some of their younger players. Of course, this is the team of Ellie De La Cruz and Matt McClain coming back from injury. And as we reported this morning, Will Salmon and I in The Athletic, they also made a run at Luis Robert Jr. before signing Hayes. They couldn't get to an agreement with the White Sox on Robert, but they made that attempt. They made that try. And it's just interesting to see with Francona now what they might be.
Yeah, they're in this weakish NL Central division. They finished fourth last season, but they had a lot of promise. I mean, I was thinking back sort of to the like ebb and flow of last season, and there was a time where it looked like all these teams with young players, the Pirates being one of them, at least at the start of the season, were in it, and then everybody kind of fell by the wayside. The Reds ended up finishing 77 and 85, fired manager David Bell, like you said, replaced him with Terry Francona. And it's just encouraging to see a team try a lot of things to get a little bit better. I thought this was interesting. They had the worst record in the majors in one-run games last year. So they have a reason to think that some amount of just regression will benefit them. And I like these moves to be like, we are not only banking on regression. We think we'll be a little bit better just through luck going our way. And we want to make sure that we're ready for that luck and maybe ready to take a run at the division. Where do you like them kind of in the division as a whole? I know the Cubs have done a lot, but
The Cubs have, and they look to be the favorite. Milwaukee has done almost nothing. We addressed that in our notes column today, too. They have yet to sign a player for more than $1 million. They're always competitive. They're always good. They've traded Devin Williams. They traded Corbin Burns last year. I expect they'll be in the mix. But I am interested to see how Francona makes his mark on this team. And Hannah, you mentioned that one-run record. That is generally, as you said, an indicator of poor luck. Yes, you lose one-run games at times because of poor managing or bad breaks or whatever, but it is, like I said, they're luck. And that said, those teams that have those poor run records generally come back the next year and do a little bit better. But we'll see how it plays out for the Reds with Francona.
what do you think ends up happening with Luis Robert? Do the White Sox find a taker for him before we get to spring training?
Well, if you remember last spring, Hannah, Dylan Cease did not get traded until mid-March. And certainly if Robert shows he is healthy and a team has a spot for him, it's a little different than Cease. Cease was a potential free agent 1 year. Robert's a couple of years, bigger money. But certainly if not in spring training, then by the trade deadline. And you look at Luis Roberts' record there, and the problem, as you can see, is the games played column. Only one season over 100, and that was in 23 when he had a monster year. That was when he had all the home runs, the 38 home runs. The OPS actually That's the batting average category, I believe. It's not OPS. But regardless, it was about 830. And he had a really outstanding season. So once that happens, the White Sox will collect another prospect or two, perhaps, eat some of that money. But they could not get it done with the Reds. And another team in that division, Hannah, is making a lot of noise and kind of like Cincinnati has been going all off season. And we're talking about Kansas City. Kansas City yesterday reaching agreement with Carlos Estevez, 2 years, $22.2 million. Their bullpen now, man, it's looking pretty good.
Mhm. Yeah, I like the bullpen move, and I was looking at last year, their rotation ERA second in Major League Baseball, their bullpen ERA 20th in Major League Baseball. So again, that's a team that kind of, I mean, they did make the postseason. They got that second wild card spot, first wild card spot, second wild card spot. It was all Central teams in the wild card
They
spots.
got one of them.
But yeah, they've there was we got so many wild card spots now to keep track of. I mean, I think it was I picked the Royals to be like a whatever, like a Cinderella team in 2023, and they were not. They lost so many games in 2023 that looked so stupid. That was a terrible pick. And every time I saw them last year, I was like, you couldn't have done this uh, a year before in 2023. It would have looked really smart. Now they're like an actually good team, and they have Bobby Witt Jr. and they have stars, and they have this great rotation. And right, sort of finishing out the bullpen is such a smart way to take a team that has like a lot of promise and actually make it a team that can contend into October.
Right, and we showed all those names. They have depth, as you mentioned, in that pen now. And the back end with Estevez, Lucas Urseg, and Hunter Harvey, who they've acquired in a trade last July, that's pretty interesting. And Hunter Harvey, I know, is not maybe as good, and he got hurt, and there are some questions about him. But you look at all the names that they have there, that's an impressive group overall. It's depth. Same with the rotation. The rotation you mentioned, Lugo, Waka, Cole Reagans, Michael Lorenzen, and then you've got some younger pitchers, Bubic, Daniel Lynch, Alec Marsh. They're all in the mix too. They could end up in the bullpen, some of them. So I like what they've done in terms of adding depth. What they've done is just collect a bunch of arms, many of them
Mm-hmm.
quite good, and that can be the foundation of where they are. They need still more offense with Witt and everything that they have going there, but I sort of like where they are. Cleveland hasn't done all that much. Remember, they lost their first baseman and second baseman. Replaced them, Carlos Santana, and they've got to play some kids at second. They've got Bieber coming back at some point, and of course, they've signed Paul Sewald. But the rest of the division has been largely dormant. So there's an opening here, perhaps for Kansas City, and they're trying to barge through it.
I mean, that's so often the story in these central divisions, right? It's there are sort of some perennial, not quite powerhouses, but teams that do well, and maybe the Cardinals or the Brewers, but or the Guardians. But then, right, it does feel like, well, push your chips in when you feel like you're on the precipice of something, and maybe you can knock the Brewers off the top spot or the Guardians off the top spot. I like these moves. A move that I like, but I don't really know why because I certainly don't understand it. The Rays signing Ha-Seong Kim, 2 years, 29 million with an opt out. That makes him the highest paid player on the Rays and the second highest free agent average annual value to Eflin, who does not pitch for them anymore, on the Rays. Help me make sense of this move.
Actually, Hannah, I thought it made a lot of sense. Now,
Okay.
Kim is coming off shoulder surgery, and he's not going to be ready until May, probably at the earliest. And the Rays have a shortstop right now, Taylor Walls, with a career 188 batting average. There's no Wander Franco. Remember, he's not in the picture. And Walls is a guy who can really field, but he is not someone who has given them any offense at all. Kim, as we all know, is a really good player. Now, he's coming off the injury, and there's always a question there. But once he gets there, he's going to be at shortstop. Caminero will be at third. They've got Brandon Lau. They've got Jonathan Aranda in the mix, Yandy Diaz. They were an offensively challenged team last year in a big way, but they've made some interesting additions. Danny Jansen to catch, and Johnny DeLuca will now take over in center for Jose Siri, who they traded. And now what they have common with Kim is another guy who can give them a little bit more offense. They're not going to be this slugging monster, but they're going to play in a more offensive-oriented park, Steinbrenner Field, this season because of Tropicana Field situation. And I just think kind of that, yeah, Kim can opt out after 1 year, but you know what? Maybe he gets them to the playoffs this year. Their pitching is really good. They always seem to find a way to compete. And yeah, I kind of liked it. I know to the average person, and to you, obviously, and not an average person, someone who covers baseball, it seemed a little weird. None of us knew that this was happening. This kind of came out of nowhere. But when you think about it, their needed shortstop. Yeah, I see it, and I like it.
It's I guess maybe a high risk, high reward. You're making your highest paid player someone who isn't going to start the season on the field and who will likely opt out if they have a great year. But the upside being that you need to there's a reason that he's the highest paid player on their team, and it's because they're not spending a lot of money anywhere else. So they're trying to buy low, take advantage of Kim looking for a pillow contract. They're trying to be like, maybe we can benefit from this half season, 3/4 of a season of someone who's looking to cash in. Because I thought he was just going to get a bigger deal. I thought he's had a great couple seasons with the Padres. There isn't a ton of offense left out there. I was sort of surprised to see this from his side of things.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I agree with you. And I see what you're saying about, okay, he's coming off the surgery. You're not going to have him for a whole year and he might opt out. From that perspective, yeah, from the Rays situation, it might not turn out that well, but they have a hard time getting anybody to play there. And especially now with Steinbrenner Field. And Kim, it seems to me, Hannah, that the injury just compromised him in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what cost him. Obviously, there are questions there. We think he's coming back in May. We think he's going to be fine. You never quite know for sure with injured players. So that seems to be what held him back. But I just like the idea of the Rays taking this upside play. And yes, there is risk. There's no question about it. But to me, they're still going to be the Rays that they always are. They're going to compete. It's going to be different. They're going to be, again, in more of a hitter's environment. But I just kind of like what I see with them.
Yeah, I think they'll probably draw better too in actual Tampa proper than in St. Pete. Maybe maybe the sellout crowds every game will power them to a postseason appearance again.
Sellouts of
All right.
11,000 seats, but yeah.
Hey, how many seats were they selling before? 11,000 people in an 11,000 seat ballpark feels better than like 12,000 in however big Tropicana is.
Fair point.
All right. Valentine's Day is coming up, which means it is time for 1-800-Flowers.com. Ken, I hear you have a story for us.
Well, it's not really a story, but this year, Fair Territory is partnering with 1-800-Flowers to make sure you're a Valentine's hero with an exclusive offer for everyone. Double the roses for free. When you buy 1 dozen, they'll double your bouquet to 2 dozen roses. And that's what I did. And these beautiful arrangements arrived for my wife without breaking the bank. She loved them. And it certainly made me look good, Hannah, which is not always easy. We don't need to comment any further on that. But trust me, 1-800-Flowers always delivers.
And so no further comment on that. Just to claim your double your roses offer, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/FT. That is 1-800-Flowers.com/FT. Okay, we got questions from Joshua Campbell. Hey, Ken, are talks between the Reds and the White Sox for Robert dead, or do you see them eventually working something out for this trade?
An excellent start to the Grillin Ken segment, and they're dead for now. I don't know that the Reds and White Sox are going to work it out before spring training, in spring training, but certainly as the season progresses, who knows what might happen. And for instance, the Reds might have an injury. Who knows? The Austin Hayes deal, it's still pending a physical. If it doesn't happen, maybe this thing gets revived, but I expect it to happen. I know Austin Hayes had the kidney infection last year, and that's why the physical is a little bit more of a concern. But once the season goes and once spring training starts and then the season goes, yeah, it's possible. But it seems to me the Reds are pretty complete where they are right now. Right now being the key phrase.
Okay, we mentioned a couple teams that hadn't done much. The the Guardians, the Brewers. Henry asking, how come the Twins haven't done anything?
The Twins have been a sore subject for a lot of Twins fans all off season, and this is the second straight year where they've kind of gone backwards after finally winning a playoff series. Last year they cut payroll. This year they're at about the same level with raises and that kind of thing, but they haven't improved. Now, their thinking is, well, we've got Pablo Lopez, Carlos Correa, Byron Buxton, and that's the core of a really good team. And they do have excellent players. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, two of those guys, Correa and Buxton, are frequently hurt. They're still looking at things. They're still trying to do things, but it seems that they're financially restricted. The TV deal and all that seems to have had more of an effect on them than some other clubs. They're for sale, and I know Twins owners or Twins fans are looking forward to a day when there are new Twins owners who are more willing to invest.
Yeah, it does feel like the Twins have been citing their RSN concerns more maybe than other teams, maybe because of that sale aspect. It feels like they are at the forefront of teams saying we're facing a lot of uncertainty, and that's why we need to be conservative with our payroll. Okay, we have a super chat question from someone about teams that are not being conservative at all. What do you think other owners think of the Dodgers spending? I think the Dodgers are not bad for baseball, but how united are owners in general? That's from Daniel Rothenberg, a super chat question.
Daniel, good question. We're going to get to it a little bit more in more detail later in the show, but other owners in general are frustrated by this, I would say, and they're concerned. And this to them is another reason why the sport desperately needs a salary cap. You guys know my opinion by now. You've watched and listened long enough. I don't believe the sport needs a salary cap. The sport can do other things to enhance the small market situation without imposing a cap. You can do a lot of other things. We can get into that another time. But are other owners happy? No, they're not happy because the Dodgers are spending in a way that no other team is matching right now, even the Mets with Steve Cohen. So this conversation is just starting. It's not going to end, and it's going to carry us right through the end of this collective bargaining agreement after the 2026 season.
Ken, I actually wanted to get your opinion on this because this is something I've been thinking about a lot. I've seen a lot of people, so people complain about the Dodgers spending, and then smart baseball people, commentators, writers, people say something like, oh, there's the parity in baseball is totally fine. Look at all the different teams that have made the postseason, won the World Series. But to me, I'm sympathetic to a fan that says, I don't want the team with all the stars to get ousted in the first round. I want my team to have some stars. Where do you sort of stand on this question of like, don't worry about the Dodgers spending because baseball's parity is fine?
To some degree, that is true. And the issue that a lot of people have, and the real issue is the economic disparity, the difference and the growing difference between the haves and the have-nots. And that is a concern. And again, there are ways to tweak the CBA. You can put tougher luxury tax penalties in. You could put luxury tax penalties on a floor situation. I don't know why that can't be done. If you have a restriction at the top, why can't you have a restriction at the bottom? You can get the small market teams more draft picks. There are a number of things you can do to tweak the current system. Now, some fans might say not enough, still need a cap. But when you talk about parity, competitive parity, that is not the issue because the expanded playoffs, which came into play in 2022, that is only enhanced the randomness of the postseason. And the Dodgers, we saw in 2022 and 23, got knocked out in the division series. And you know what? Don't forget, last year, they were down 2-1 to the Padres in San Diego with Game 4. They were running a bullpen game, and they still got out of it. But they nearly were eliminated then, too. So I don't worry about that so much. But the economic disparity, sure, it is an issue. It's always going to be an issue in baseball because of the different revenue streams that different markets create. This is a locally generated sport as opposed to the NFL, which basically has most of its revenue, the vast majority, tied up in national television contracts. That's not the case in baseball. Now, the commissioner, Rob Manfred, would like to make a national television package and accompany that with a cap. Lots of luck. I just don't see that happening. I don't see the Yankees, Dodgers, and Mets how this would work with them giving up revenue, even if it means a cap,
Yeah.
and how they would essentially lower the franchise values that they've worked hard to build.
Yeah, we're seeing the owners, they're getting in on the party line early. We're seeing David Rubenstein calling for a salary cap, the Orioles' new owner, in his first year as an owner. What do you make of their offseason under Rubenstein's new ownership, but still Elias heading up the front office?
I wrote about it today with Will Salmon, and it's interesting. They've spent money. You cannot argue with what they've done that way. They've spent nearly $100 million on free agents. But in replacing Corbin Burns, who was their ace last year, they've signed two older pitchers. Tomoyuki Sugano from Japan, who was an ace over there, and Charlie Morton, who is now 41. Sugano is 35. And then the Tyler O'Neill signing, we got into this a little bit as well. Early on, they got him 3 years, $49.5 million. But the price might have been high for a guy who's often injured, and he has an opt out after 1 year as well. Profar went for less. Anthony Santander didn't go for less, but with his deferrals, the AAV was really low. So perhaps waiting would have been the way to go. We'll see how that all plays out. We don't know. But I don't mind what they've done in terms of spending. I like that they finally have spent. I'm not sure the choices are going to work out as well as they'd like. And there is talk in the game. Orioles fans think I'm picking on the team. But there's a lot of talk in the game about how the general manager, you mentioned, Mike Elias, he's obviously really good at drafting and he is really good at player development. But is he really good at polishing off a major league roster? We have not seen that yet.
Yeah, I just want to okay, I just want to cap that last point. I think people sometimes say like, "Oh, it's unfair to be critical of GMs who are doing this other thing well." Like whether a GM can't sign a free agent but they draft and develop well, or if they can't put together a postseason team but they yeah, draft and develop well. And I'm always like, "Well, it's okay to judge them on the results. It's, it's he's like people are critical of Mike Elias because the Orioles have these great players. They have these great young, cost controlled players, and that is a credit to him. But the job is still to win a postseason series, at least, if not, a title and a championship. So I'm with you on. I don't think anyone is being unfair to the Orioles to say, what are you doing with all this young talent, if not turning that young talent into yeah, at least an
And remember,
AL
they're coming
title.
off, Hannah, they're coming off a bad deadline, too. Their deadline was
Yeah.
not that impactful. Zach Eflin was a great addition, no question. But the rest of it was not so good. And again, as you just said, this is the key point. They've got an opportunity here. They're not going to have Gunnar
Right.
Henderson and Adley Rushman and some of their other young players forever, right? They're going to hit free agency at some point. It's a ways away still, but their window is right now, and they need to seize the moment. And that's the question. Have they done a sufficient job of that? We'll see how it plays out.
All right. Thanks everyone for all of your great Grillin Ken questions. And now it is time for Dude of the Week.
Dude. Dude. Dude.
All right, we'll start with me on the dude of the week, Hannah. And it's actually a team, it's actually an owner, Mark Walter, the Mark Walter Family Foundation, and the Dodgers Foundation. All three of those entities combined call them the Los Angeles Dodgers. And the reason we're giving them due to the week, or I'm giving them due to the week, is the $100 million donation to the Los Angeles Wildfire Recovery Fund. That was an amazing donation. I know the joke on social media was, well, how much of it is deferred? Fair question always with the Dodgers, but wildfire recovery and rebuilding is so important right now, and $100 million is a heck of a lot of money. We know the Dodgers are making a heck of a lot of money, but that was something that certainly warrants due to the week. Mark Walter, the Walter Family Foundation, and the Dodgers Foundation. All dudes.
I love it. My Dude of the Week, Junior Caminero. I was worried everybody had already seen this, but I just want to make sure if anyone hasn't seen this. Game 7 of the Lidom, the Dominican Winter League Championship. Oh gosh, I'm going to butcher these teams' names. The Leones del Escogido and the Tigres del Lice. I do not speak Spanish. That is a shame on me because I should in this industry. Okay, Game 7, ninth inning, tie game, 5-5. Junior Caminero hits a 454-foot home run. It's not a walk-off because it's the top of the ninth, but it ends up being the game-winning home run. And the home run itself is not the highlight of this clip. He takes nearly a minute to round the bases. When I watched it the first time, you see the home run. So he swings. It's a great swing. The ball, it goes so far, and you're looking at the ball, and then it cuts back to him, and he's somewhere between home plate and first base, and he's celebrating with his entire team managed by Albert Pujols. And I thought, oh my gosh, he rounded the bases so quickly. He's already back at home plate celebrating. No, he had not even gotten to first base yet. He took his sweet time, as he should, celebrating with his team, celebrating by himself. Even between first and third, when there's no one to celebrate with, he was finding ways to pimp the home run in the middle of the base paths, and no one got mad as far as I could tell. I love that. There was no brawl for this long, protracted celebration.
Not in Game 7
he,
of the Dominican League Championship. Come on.
No, that's the kind of energy we always want. I like this because I truly, years ago, there was the Rhys Hoskins slow home run trot to troll somebody, and I thought that's perfect. That's a perfect way to bring some kind of like rivalry-ish energy to a game that doesn't direct your emotion at the other team. It's fun, it's weird, it's so specific to baseball because when you hit a home run, you have complete control of the pace of the game. Now it's all on you. You get to do whatever you want. I just thought this clip is so much fun. Seek it out. If someone hasn't seen it, seek it out. And Junior Caminero having a great Dominican Winter League. He had an OPS over 1,000 in his lead-em appearance this winter. So something to look for going into spring too.
And he will be a guest on Foul Territory on Monday. He's joining the guys Monday. So let's get to our next.
Well,
it's happening. Let's get to our next little segment.
Time for the John Fisher Dork of the Week. Am I going first? Should I go first with the dorks?
Go ahead, Hannah.
My dork of the week is Pirates leadership. That includes ownership and the front office for not doing more to build around Paul Skeens. We have talked so much this offseason about the Dodgers and their unique access to a talent pool of expensive free agents and maybe slightly unique access to a talent pool of free agents, international free agents coming over from Japan. Oh, they have all the fun because they get to sign the most expensive players. But the Pirates have access to a unique pool of talented players too, and that is high draft picks. They had unique access to Paul Skeens, a nearly major league ready pitcher coming out of college. They have him. Nobody else has him. They're paying him the major league minimum. This man is not even arbitration eligible yet. He's going to get a full season. He got a full season of service time because he won Rookie of the Year. So they're on the clock to make use of him. And they have done almost nothing. Not nothing, because they're making small moves, but they're making moves that are just not going to put a championship caliber team around a pitcher who Steamer has him projected to be the best pitcher in Major League Baseball this year. Zips has him seventh. And the Pirates are running a payroll lower going into 2025 than what they ran in 2024, lower than what they ran in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. They have, I think, the third lowest luxury tax payroll in baseball right now. They could afford to make some real moves, some major moves to capitalize on this moment. I hate seeing small market teams complain about big market teams and what they get access to through virtue of having all this money, but you're getting access to something through virtue of having these high draft picks, and you're not making the most of it in the same way that the Dodgers spent huge money on Shohei Ohtani, and now what they're doing is spending more money to kind of capitalize on having that player. The Pirates didn't have to spend a lot of money on Paul Skeens, and they're doing nothing to capitalize on having that player.
All right, my dork of the week is on the other end of the spectrum, and it's a Yankees owner, Hal Steinbrenner, the Yankees owner, in fact. And then we had a question earlier about how are other owners reacting to the Dodgers. Well, here you go. Here's the quote from Hal Steinbrenner to Yes Network. It's difficult for most of us owners to be able to do the kinds of things they're doing. We'll see if it pays off. They still have to have a season relatively injury-free for it to work out for them. Last two sentences, no problem. First sentence, it's difficult for most of us owners to be able to do what they're doing. Big problem. Here's the Yankees franchise value according to Forbes as of last year. $7.55 billion. That was about $2 billion more than the Dodgers franchise value. Hal Steinbrenner, he has said repeatedly, we should be able to build a team, a championship team for under $300 million. He's not wrong about that, but when Hal Steinbrenner groups himself with, I don't know, the Cleveland Guardians, the Tampa Bay Rays, and all these other low-revenue teams, most of us owners, no, sorry, you don't get that pass. And the Yankees right now, they need a left-handed reliever and they need another infielder. Are they going to do something? We don't know. They have to trade Marcus Stroman in order to get more flexible. This should not be a position the New York Yankees are in. They've done a lot this offseason after losing Soto, no question. But Hal Steinbrenner, that quote, not good, dork of the week.
All right. Before we go, check out BetMGM's first bet $1,500 offer when you use code FOUL, F-O-U-L. Get this offer when you download BetMGM Sportsbook app or at BetMGM.com. Sign up, enter that bonus code FOUL, and deposit at least $10 into your new account. Place your first wager and receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets. If the bet does lose, your bonus bets will be available once your initial wager is settled. Gambling problem or concern, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Ken, thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for letting me hang out with you, actually.
Thank you,
were
Hannah.
going to be hanging out regardless.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Foul Territory is next. Jim Bowden, Teoscar Hernandez, and Derek Lewandowski from Pinstripe Territory will be joining Todd Frazier, Eric Kratz, and Scott Braun.